Okay, so anyone listening to this is probably already pretty into Bitcoin. All right, I bet you've heard about Google getting into Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's been all over.
It's been everywhere.
Wow.
And we're diving deeper into this today.
It's exciting.
Right. I'm excited. We're looking at this recent article from Crypto Briefing that's making waves.
Yeah.
And it's all about how Google wants to make using Bitcoin as simple as logging into your Gmail.
Yeah, that's their big goal, they're saying.
And everyone is trying to figure out how.
Yeah, how are they going to do
What
that?
that even look like?
Basically, they want to create Bitcoin wallets that are like any other app that you use.
Like so easy.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
super user-friendly, like the Web 2 apps that everyone's already familiar with.
Wow.
Yeah.
So think about like everyone who uses Google products.
It's a huge number of people.
It's billions of users.
Yeah.
If they make Bitcoin that accessible.
That's the key, right? Lowering the barrier to entry.
That's huge.
Like Kyle Song, Google Cloud's APAC Web3 specialist, talked about this in Hong Kong at the Bitcoin Tech Carnival.
Huh. Yeah.
And he was saying, you know, bringing millions more people into the crypto world, making it easier for those Web 2 users to just jump right in.
That makes a lot of sense. And the thing that everyone is really excited about is this sign in with Google idea for Bitcoin wallets.
Yeah. I mean, that's got everyone buzzing. Can you imagine just using your Google login to get to your Bitcoin?
It sounds amazing.
Like no more seed phrases.
Oh my God.
You know, no more worrying about forgetting your password. It would be a game changer.
Seriously, I have the worst time with passwords.
I mean, who doesn't?
So for me, this sounds like a dream come true.
I mean, yeah, the idea is fantastic.
Right.
But like conceptually, yeah, it's brilliant. You just use, you know, like we said, your Google account to get into your Bitcoin wallet.
That's so simple.
But making it all work
yeah,
seamlessly and securely, that's the tricky part.
I bet. So the article also mentioned these spot Bitcoin ETFs that are supposed to launch in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's why Google's making this move now? Like, is that connected?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. The approval of those ETFs, it's like a signal, right?
Right.
It says that traditional finance is taking Bitcoin seriously now.
Okay.
So it's creating a much more regulated, safer environment,
Okay.
you know, for companies like Google to jump in.
Gotcha. So it's like the doors have opened.
Exactly.
But even for Google, this has got to be really hard, right? To
Yeah.
bring traditional finance and the blockchain together.
I mean, yeah, it's a massive undertaking.
Right.
And one of the biggest things they have to figure out is security.
Of course.
Like, how do they make this user-friendly but still keep Bitcoin decentralized?
Right, because you can't compromise that.
Exactly. You can't mess with the core principles of Bitcoin, like decentralization.
So how are they even going to do this? What are they working on to make this happen?
Well, Google's investing heavily in R&D, like you'd expect. They're
Right.
researching things like, have you heard of zero-knowledge proofs?
I've heard of it,
ZKPs, for short.
but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, that sounds super complicated.
Yeah. But it's basically a way to prove, you know, something without revealing the thing itself.
Okay.
So like, imagine proving you have the right to access your Bitcoin wallet without actually showing anyone your private keys.
Oh, wow. So it's all about verifying things, but keeping the sensitive information secret.
Exactly. And that's like a huge deal for blockchain.
Makes sense.
It's about enhancing both security and privacy.
It sounds like this is more than just talk.
Yeah.
Google's already doing stuff in Web3, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They're already working with different Web3 projects, and that's a pretty big sign, right?
It shows they're serious about this.
Absolutely.
So what are they actually working on? Give me some examples.
Well, for developers, they've got Google Cloud's Ethereum-compatible blockchain RPC service.
Okay, I've heard of that.
It helps people build applications on the blockchain.
So they're helping build the infrastructure.
Exactly.
Wow.
And then there's that partnership with the Sui blockchain using ZetaBlock
Oh, right.
for real-time data access. Yeah, I read about that.
So, you know, they're not just focusing on Bitcoin wallets.
They're all over the place.
They want to be a major player in the whole Web3 ecosystem.
That's so interesting. So for me, or for our listener, what's the big takeaway? Why should we care that Google is doing all this?
Well, it all comes down to access and simplicity, right?
Okay.
Think about what Google did for email with Gmail,
Oh, yeah.
or how they changed the whole search game.
They made things so easy.
Exactly. They have this knack for taking complex stuff and making it so easy to use.
So they could do that for Bitcoin.
It's totally possible. They have the resources, tons of users, and they really want to make technology accessible to everyone.
So just imagine, using Bitcoin could become as simple as like sending a text message.
I mean, that's the future they're working towards, right? Whether they succeed or not, this is going to have a huge impact on crypto.
I can't wait to see what happens. And we're going to explore that impact even more in part 2 of this deep dive. All right, so let's really dig into this impact then. Like, if Google actually pulls this off, could this be how Bitcoin goes mainstream?
It could be huge. Yeah, I mean, think about it. They've got billions of users already. People using their products every day.
Right. So if even a small percentage of
A
them,
fraction.
yeah, a fraction of them, start using Bitcoin through these easy wallets,
It would be a flood of new users.
it would only boost demand and probably drive up the price of Bitcoin too, right?
Yeah, the price would probably go crazy, but it's not all about the price.
Right.
It's about giving more people access to a technology that could totally change how we think about money.
I get that, but like, let's be real for a sec.
Yeah.
There are already a ton of Bitcoin wallets out there, right?
Yeah.
What makes Google's different?
Well, think about what they did with Gmail. Before Gmail came along, email was kind of clunky, confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah, it wasn't that easy to use.
Right. But then Google came in, simplified everything, made it super user-friendly.
And now everyone uses email.
Exactly. So they could do the same thing for Bitcoin.
Wow.
Make it so easy that anyone could use it, even if you've never even heard of a blockchain.
I'm starting to get it. Okay.
Yeah.
But there's got to be some challenges, right? This can't be that easy.
Oh, there are definitely some hurdles. Yeah.
Like what?
I mean, one of the big ones is how do you integrate Bitcoin, which is decentralized by nature, with Google's systems, which are very centralized.
Right.
They're going to have to find a balance.
So they can't sacrifice security or that decentralized aspect.
Absolutely. They can't compromise on those core principles of Bitcoin.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about like the government? Aren't there regulations and stuff that they have to deal with?
Oh, yeah, for sure. The regulatory landscape is a whole other challenge.
It's complicated.
Yeah, governments are still figuring out how to handle all this crypto stuff.
Right.
So Google's going to have to navigate that carefully.
Yeah, I bet. And don't forget about the competition.
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Like all the other tech giants, Apple, Microsoft.
They're all looking at blockchain.
Yeah, they're already in the game.
It's not just Google, but Google's moving fast.
Oh, they're ahead.
They're definitely setting the pace. Yeah, and that's putting pressure on everyone else.
So it's like a good thing, right? Because it'll push everyone to innovate.
Exactly. Competition is good for innovation.
But then there's that concern about Google having too much control.
That's the double-edged sword, yeah.
Like we talked about before, the centralization thing.
Yeah, we got to be careful about that. Bitcoin is supposed to be decentralized, not controlled by one big company.
Right, exactly. So it sounds like we need to keep an eye on all this.
We definitely do. As users, as people who believe in a decentralized future, we got to make sure these developments are moving in the right direction.
That makes sense. What about banks?
Oh, yeah.
How are they going to be affected by all of this?
Well, a lot of people are wondering about that. Banks are already facing competition from all these fintech startups, and now Google's jumping into the mix.
Yeah, it's another layer of competition.
It's interesting, right? Some banks are starting to embrace blockchain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're exploring its potential,
Okay.
trying to figure out how to use it to make their operations more efficient.
They're trying to keep up.
Yeah, they see how things are changing, and then you have the banks that are like stuck in the old ways.
Yeah, the ones who think this is all just a fad.
Exactly. They think crypto's going to disappear.
And they're going to get left behind.
Well, I think just like the internet changed, banking blockchain is going to have a huge impact too.
It's like another revolution.
Exactly. And the banks that don't adapt are going to struggle.
It's like David and Goliath, right? These fast-moving tech companies taking on these giant institutions.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic, but it's not really about who wins or loses, you know?
What is it about then?
It's about how this competition benefits the people who use these systems.
So the users, the everyday people.
Exactly. So far, we've talked about the good stuff, the potential benefits of Google getting into Bitcoin.
Right.
But what about the downsides? What are some of the risks?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what could go wrong?
Well, one big concern is that this could lead to more centralization, which we don't want.
Right.
I mean, if Google ends up controlling a ton of Bitcoin wallets, that kind of goes against the whole idea of Bitcoin, right?
It defeats the purpose.
It's supposed to be decentralized, and we got to make sure it stays that way.
Okay, so what else?
Privacy is another big one. Google already collects a lot of data about us.
Yeah, we know that.
So if they start managing our Bitcoin wallets, what does that mean for the privacy of our financial transactions?
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So these are things we need to be aware of.
We got to be mindful of these risks, yeah.
Okay, so what can we do? Like, as individuals, what can we do to make sure Bitcoin stays decentralized?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed. Keep learning about Bitcoin, engage in discussions, support projects that prioritize decentralization.
So be active participants, not just passive consumers.
Exactly. We can't just let Google or any other company decide the future of this technology.
Right. We have a say.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations, these deep dives, to really think critically about all this.
Awesome. Well, we've covered a lot in this part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've looked at the potential impact of Google's move into Bitcoin,
The good and the bad.
the ups and the downs, exactly, and how it affects users, tech companies, even traditional financial institutions.
There's one more crucial thing, though.
Okay, what's that?
We need to talk about the impact on the whole competitive landscape.
Oh, yeah. How is this going to change things for all the players involved?
Exactly. We'll explore all of that in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, so we talked about how this whole Google Bitcoin thing could affect users, the financial system, all that.
Right.
But what about, like, the other big tech companies?
Mm.
How does this change things for them?
Well, you got to see it as a power move, right? Google's basically saying we're the way to get into Bitcoin.
Ah, okay.
So that puts pressure on everyone else, like Apple, Microsoft,
Right, all the big players.
Yeah, they have to step up their game now.
And they are kind of already, right? Like we've seen Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, they're all looking at blockchain.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But I think Google doing this,
It makes them move fast.
yeah, it speeds things up. Competition is good for that, right? It drives innovation.
That's true. So we could see a lot more Web3 stuff coming out soon.
Exactly. Like, imagine being able to use Bitcoin across all your favorite apps and platforms.
That would be pretty cool.
Super seamless, right?
Yeah. But doesn't that give these companies even more control?
That's the thing, right? We talked about centralization before.
With Google's wallets.
It's a balance. It's like Bitcoin is supposed to be this open, decentralized thing.
Right.
But then you have these big companies coming in.
And they want to control it.
Well, they want to be a part of it. And I think it's up to all of us, the users, the developers, to make sure Bitcoin stays true to its roots.
So it's a constant battle.
Kinda, yeah. Like, we want things to be easy to use, so more people will adopt Bitcoin.
Right.
But we also have to protect that decentralized nature.
Okay, I see that. So who else is affected by all this besides other tech companies?
I mean, traditional financial institutions, right?
Banks.
Yeah, banks. They're already dealing with all these fintech startups,
Mm-hmm.
and now they've got Google to worry about, too.
It's like another wave of disruption.
Exactly. It's like adapt or die,
Wow. So do you think they'll adapt?
Some will, some won't. Some banks are getting into blockchain, exploring how they can use it.
They're trying to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah. They're the ones who see the potential. And then you have the banks that are like, this is just a fad.
Yeah, you gotta go away.
But it won't. It's like with the internet, it changed everything. And blockchain's going to do the same thing for finance.
And the banks that don't change, they'll get left behind.
That's my take, yeah. It's really interesting to watch, right?
It is. It's like this battle between the old and the new.
Yeah, it's the tech companies versus the big institutions. But in the end, it's about the users.
Right. It should benefit everyone.
Exactly. So for our listener out there, the person who's already into Bitcoin,
What should they be watching for?
I think the big thing is partnerships.
Right.
Who's Google working with? What kind of stuff are they building? How are they integrating Bitcoin into their other products?
It's all about how they're using it.
Right. And then what are the other companies doing? How are they responding?
It's just the beginning.
Oh, yeah, we're still in the early stages. But things are moving fast, and Google's pushing everyone forward.
We've talked about a lot today, haven't we?
We have. It's a big topic.
Google's plans, what it means for users, the whole tech world, the financial system. And the big question is, how is this all going to play out?
Nobody knows for sure, but it's going to be exciting to watch.
And who knows, maybe someday using Bitcoin will be as normal as sending an email.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would be amazing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was fun.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.